Alright. How's it going, chat? Howdy, Marshall. Howdy, Spaz. Howdy, Pink. Howdy, shut the fuck up. I'm gonna... Alright, we're gonna try this again. Happy, early, Merry Christmas, chat. If you can't tell, I am tired as shit. I don't know. I've been fighting like this on and off cold for the past week or so, and it's been fucking my chest up. Howdy, Odagay. So we're gonna be doing our book club for A Christmas Carol tonight. I hope you all read it. It's not a very long story. Some of you were definitely freaking out over the length of A Christmas Carol, which is like, okay. Lawrence gaily exclaimed, "Indeed! It is a time for gaiety. Christmas is the time for gaiety. Make merry, make love. Not in that way. Howdy, Shy. Merry Christmas." So, I have a little story to tell, okay? I'm ending up on Santa's naughty list for fucking sure this year, because I went to the store to get myself a couple tall boys, right? Sort of take the edge off of this like chest cold that I'm having, because nothing helps the chest more than alcohol. So I went to the store to get myself a couple tall boys, which I'm taking a little bit of a sip right there. But the I had no idea that my town's Christmas parade was tonight. So, it's weird, because why would you have a Christmas parade at night? But I guess they wanted to show off the lights and everything, but at the same time, it's like, eh. But, okay, so it's tonight, alright? PC shit stuff December 1st. That means, hey, big surprise coming to you. Merry Christmas. Christmas Day, big surprise. I thought this was some murder mystery with a ghost involved, then got slapped with memories of watching the animated movie. What the fuck? How do you not know what A Christmas Carol is? What? Huh? Anyways, so I had to walk around the entire parade. I had to walk to the back of the parade so I can get to the store to get myself my tall boys. Well, guess who happened to be at the very end of the parade, because of course he is. In every fucking Christmas parade, he's always at tail end. It's motherfucking Santa riding a fire truck. So Santa had to watch me walk around the entire parade, go into the store, and come out with a bag full of tall boys and walk my merry ass home. I am 100%. I didn't even watch the parade at all. I saw the goats. They were walking on the parade, and that was very cute. Alright? And, but I am 100% getting my ass put on the naughty list for that one. Alright? Also, another thing is, I could hear it from like a block or two away, but I immediately recognized there's like 4 fucking, high schools in the area. Santa knows that feel. Yeah. I mean, he's drinking all the fucking eggnog. I'm sure the eggnog is not... I guarantee you, the eggnog that they have in the North Pole, that shit is alcoholic. I guarantee you. They're cold all year round. They're constantly working nonstop. They're drinking on the job. If he gets to fucking drink on the job and still be the merry delight to all children, I get to sit in my room alone, privacy in my own home, and have a couple tall boys, alright? But, anyways, I could hear from like a block away. Of all 4 high school bands there, I could automatically pick out the high school band from the high school that I went to, because they just have this certain sound. And I was like, I know that sound. That's the music teacher. He's the one that has that sound, because nobody else... I will say, I think he's a total fucking cocknut, but he's also a really good musician, right? He knows, he knows music composition really well. And then I had to wonder, is he still working there ever since he cheated on his wife and she brought a gun to school? Is he still working there? And I asked around and people was like, I don't fucking know. So there may or may not be a high school teacher still working there that almost got fired or did get fired because he cheated on his wife and his wife did a very naughty thing. Speaking of being on the naughty list, they're both on the naughty list. And speaking of being on the naughty list, Ebenezer Scrooge. Now, how many of y'all have heard throughout your life the term Scrooge and never really applied it? That's only really been a term created by Charles Dickens because of his character. Now, I don't know how many of you have read Charles Dickens, like any of his other works, his plays or anything like that. Like a book that I was reading that was really good. I didn't finish it. I'll tell you why I didn't finish it here in a bit, but it was Great Expectations. And as you read through Charles Dickens' works, you will start to get this idea that he's not a socialist. However, he does write a lot about social causes, especially for the poor and needy. When did this book come out? I probably should have looked that up. A Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens, first published by... Fuck off. I'm not giving you money, Wikipedia. Fuck off. 1843. It first came out in 1843. So... yeah, in all of his works, he's had this like very socially conscious, help the poor, help the needy, but not through the eyes of socialism and communism, but through the eyes of a sort of kind of radical Christian mindset. The same kind of mindset that Leo Tolstoy had, or John Brown. I know some of you motherfuckers will start, heaving and hawing at that, but hey, I'm from Kansas. Here, he's a hero. Whatever he did outside of Kansas, I don't give a fuck. Here, all the fucking Jayhawkers were heroes, except for like two. But there's a very specific reason why we don't celebrate a few of them, alright? But, the message in all of his stories is self-betterment for it's a way of bettering society through bettering yourself. He doesn't believe in the sacrifice of the self for the good of society. He believes that by bettering ourselves, we can better society. That's in all of his works. That is what separates him from socialism, is that socialism believes that sacrifice is necessary for the good of society. However, Dickens believes that it is good, through better growth and bettering yourself. That is the only way that you're going to fix society. Wasn't John Brown the guy who helped raid Kansas? No, he fought against the raids of Kansas. The poor and needy need to stay that way, which is why we should abolish the demonic system called welfare. Spaz, go take your horse electrolytes. No, John Brown helped. He was part of the Jayhawkers, so they were in Kansas first. Not all Jayhawkers were in Kansas first. However, the Jayhawk movement started in Kansas before the Bushwhackers moved in. So, the other thing is Scrooge being a term for a miser, a very greedy person, somebody that has plenty of fucking wealth. And not only, it's one thing to have plenty of wealth and revel in it and, show off your wealth and shit, but to be Mr. Moneybags and not even spend it on anything. Whereas Scrooge is quite literally counting how many coals are in his fireplace. He will portion out his meals so that he barely gets enough food to just move on. All these things that he does. Or one of the best adaptations of A Christmas Carol, which is the 3D animated movie, the CGI animated movie. The opening scene where you see Marley's body in the casket and Scrooge takes the... I don't know if that started in the CG movie, but that's where I remember it from. Where he takes the coins off of Marley's eyes. The pounds. Right? The pound sterling coins. He takes them off Marley's eyes to pocket them. Scrooge has plenty of fucking money, and he pinches every single penny. That is a idea that has been around for a while. However, it never really had a name or a title for it. You had miser, which was like yeah, you have that. However, Scrooge, it just fits. And that's because A Christmas Carol is such a good book in showing you that this is a very detestable, unlikable guy because of his actions. However, whenever you get down to it, as you read through the book, you start to feel more and more for him. Right? Was Scrooge based off of Daniel Dancer? I have no idea who that was. Who that is. Who the fuck? His life was documented soon after his death, continuing. Oh, is that the guy that was like go dumpster diving for his clothes? I don't think he was based off him. I think he was based off of like. Notice how Lawrence can't say I'm wrong. I think we're not going to talk about politics, Spez. That's why you piss me off every stream because you're so fucking autistic, and I don't want to talk about politics. Anyways, we're talking about morals, okay? Anyways, get another sip of my beer. He would go dumpster diving for his clothes, ate rotten meat pies, and made 3K pounds a month. Yeah. Yeah. If you're ever that fucking... Like... There's a lot of people that can't hold their wealth to save their fucking life. But if you get to that bad to where you... At that point, he was a millionaire. In his day and age, he was a millionaire. Like, not literally he had millions in his time, but the money that he had would equate to millions nowadays, right? If you had that much money and you're like dumpster diving for clothes, you have a fucking mental illness, dude. Anyways, but the entire story of A Christmas Carol, which I'm sure we've all read it, right? You read the fucking book for the book club, right? Or even if you have common knowledge, because this story is literally one of the most popular stories in the English language. Like, I guarantee you it is the top 10 most printed stories in English. So, it starts off, you have the beginning, which is the life of Scrooge, where you see a bitter, greedy, miserly penny pincher of an old man, right? And it shows how he doesn't give a fuck about anyone. He's bitter, he's angry, he hates joy, he hates happiness, he hates, anything, right? And all he wants to do is work, save up money, go home, and fucking, I don't know, sleep. Well, as you go on, you see how his actions are directly impacting other people's ability to enjoy the Christmas season, right? So you have... I'm trying to explain it, where you have his fucking... You have all the people that he impacts their ability to enjoy Christmas season. However, throughout the story, you'll see that they still enjoy it anyways. Even if... Scrooge doesn't give his money, or he doesn't give his wealth, or he doesn't, give extra time off to his employee, which I can't remember. Cratchit? Yeah. Cratchit. Even if he doesn't give any extra time off to Cratchit and his poor family, then they still try and enjoy Christmas. And they still pray, almost everyone there, I'm not going to say everyone because there's a few characters that still just dislike him, but almost everyone there, they wish that Scrooge would, they wish and they pray that someday Scrooge would learn to enjoy Christmas with them. It's a thing where they're not praying that he suffers, that he's hurting, that he's, in pain, or that he'll get his comeuppance for, his wicked deeds. They're praying that he gets better, which is that's one of those radical Christian ideas where if you're a real Christian, you believe that, I don't want to see the people that have wronged me suffer. I want to see them get better. Bob Cratchit, yeah. Hates the guy with a passion. Women do tend to be more vindictive, and that is something that is carried through a lot of Dickens' works. It's either he worships women and says, "Oh, they're these angels that, you know, they're so innocent, they know no sin, they know no malice," or they're vindictive little twats that are like will just drive conflict in the story for no reason other than A, they didn't know better, B, they felt justified in doing it, and they'll never see themselves as wrong. Dickens was, I don't know if Dickens is like the modern radical feminist, or he was a hardcore misogynist. I can't tell at all, but it's fucking hilarious. Anyways, so then Scrooge goes home Christmas Eve. You know the whole story. He goes and he sits, and the ghost of Marley shows up to him and exclaims how his toil, his work, and everything weighs him down to earth because he wasn't able to free himself from his earthly attachments with charity, hope, love, the Christian way of living. He will be forced to walk the earth aimlessly, forever tethered by what held him back. And he warns Scrooge, if you don't want to end up how I did, you're going to be visited by 3 spirits tonight, and you better learn a fucking lesson. Scrooge doesn't really believe in this shit. And I do think it's fucking hilarious that he believes for a while that Marley was like, he was just an apparition. He was just something I dreamt up, something I imagined, right? And whenever the ghost of Christmas Past shows up, he's like, this must be a dream. I'm just dreaming. But by the time the ghost of Christmas Present shows up, he just shuts up and he's like, okay, I get the idea. What do I need to do? That idea of a ghost is metal as shit. I also love the CGI version of Marley, because it says that throughout the even in the original book, it says that Marley throughout the time will just start howling and screaming. However, there's barely any adaptations I've seen from like the 2D animated one or the Muppets one where Marley isn't seen as that tortured howling spirit. In the CGI one, that's the only one where he'll come in just screaming his head off. But, of course, we gotta go to this is going to be a very fast book club chat. I don't know what to talk about other than a quick rundown of the book and talk about what we think. What did you all think of Marley, by the way? I'm sure you all listened to the original or first edition of it. What did you all think of Marley, alright? I think his ghost showing up the way it did, where you hear the description of the chains and the thud and the clanging and the rattling that goes all throughout the house until eventually he just breaks through the door and starts screaming his head off. That is as close to a horror story as you can get in almost any Christmas story. Honestly, that and the description of the boy almost being murdered at the beginning of Great Expectations, I genuinely think Dickens could have been a just outstanding horror author. But he was writing at around the same time as Poe, right? That was around the same time as Poe? Kind of around the same time? I think Poe came a little bit after. But I did not read the book, but the 2009 movie scared the hell out of me. Marley and his jaw scared me. Yes. That's also in the original story, that his jaw was hanging loose. I love how Dickens, whenever he writes, he doesn't write bullshit. Whenever Marley is telling Scrooge, like, if you don't fix your ways, you're going to suffer like me, he doesn't beat around the fucking bush. Marley just straight up tells him, he's like, you're going to wind up where I am. And there's nothing you can do about it unless you change yourself now. I also like how he points out, he's like, look, there are millions like me that pass by you every day. You don't notice them because they're not meant to be noticed. But they're there. the the idea of spirits that are weighed down by their earthly attachments. Quite literally, the chains that he has are made of his stationary supplies, his weights, his, scissors, his pins, his station, all that shit that he used in life. That's what his chains are made out of, right? That's what it said in the story. So, having that be what drags him down and keeps him there, that is, obviously you get the, fucking symbolisms as, it's as still as a fucking punch right to the nose, right? But it's still very effective where you start thinking about, look, if I were to die tomorrow, what are my chains going to be made out of? What's going to be holding me down? I know I'm going to have if I die tomorrow, it's going to be a pain in the fucking ass for me to have to carry around this entire desk and PC setup. Yeah. Which makes me think, what happens to Marley at the end of the story? Does he get redeemed for what he did, or made me think the same? Yeah. That's what that whole entire part made me think of. Is like, what am I going to be weighed down by? What am I going to have to carry all throughout the fucking afterlife? Moving on to the Ghost of Christmas Past. I don't think we need to talk about this too much. I mean, it's pretty... Look, his past is pretty obvious. As a boy, he was shunned away from his family because his father wanted him to go to school, learn, and become wealthy. One Christmas, his sister comes by and is able to bring him home, and that's a very happy Christmas memory. There are things that Scrooge sees that his younger self couldn't. He sees now that his younger self couldn't, and he says, "If only I had seen this whenever I was a boy." Ali Baba and the Arabian Nights, the Christmas play Ali Baba and the Arabian Nights, which is very popular in England at the time. He says, "If only I had seen that. If only I could have seen that," or it was something about the prince coming to give gifts. And it's like, if only I had seen that. If only I was there to see the parrot and Ali Baba and all these stories. And it was right outside the window of the school that he was in, right outside the window. Yeah, that was brutal. We're gonna get to that, but then you have his sister taking him home, and it was this happy memory where, it comes to find out, you have to read it in subtext, but his father was dying and he wanted to see Scrooge again. Am I late? We're just covering the Ghost of Christmas Past right now. So did you read the book, Blaze? You better have read the book. Or listen to an audiobook. First edition. I swear to God. The original. Not any of the fucking retypes like A Christmas Carol for the Modern Ages, or the modern audience. Fuck off. We're gonna listen to Dickens like he was meant to be listened to, alright? Or read. So, you get the subtext that, yeah, he was able to go home and spend Christmas with his family, but at the same time, his father was dying. So, the next Christmas is a big Christmas party that Scrooge enjoyed with his former employer, right? That he was apprentice under. Fuck! So, on YouTube, I say I listened to most of it. He didn't listen. Ooh, he didn't do his book club assignment. It's okay. But I'm sure you know A Christmas Carol. It's like one of those things that if you grew up in an English speaking country, you know A Christmas Carol. Even if you didn't grow up in never mind. I was gonna make a joke, but never mind. So you had that big old party and everything. And how Scrooge just wanted to stay a little bit longer. His spirit was dancing alongside all the other spirits, and he was genuinely happy. And then you had the Christmas where now he's starting to be greedy. He has that money. He has those fingers that count money, those eyes that shift from bill to bill. All that. Was able to read it because of personal life stuff. It wasn't that long, Flame. It's literally like a 2-hour read. But if you're too busy, I guess you're too busy. The Christmas where fuck, the girl that he likes says that you don't have the spirit. You don't have the spirit and the love. You're losing the spirit and the love that I need. So I can't be with you anymore. And she leaves. And this is where Scrooge begins to hate Christmas. He grows to despise Christmas, right? What's it? Surprised by how both melancholic and joyful it is. Yeah. And then you have the Ghost of Christmas Past showing a life that could have been his. The girl that he loved had grown up, had her kid, had kids for herself, and then her kids had kids, right? So they're all together for Christmas, and they're all having their big Christmas festivity. 3 generations of family, all having their Christmas celebration, and Scrooge can only think that could have been me. Instead of me being holed up in my manor alone with only one fire going, and I count each coal that burns to make sure I'm not burning too much. I'm keeping it just cold enough that I don't die. This miserable hovel that I've made for myself. That could have been me, surrounded by warmth and family and love. And he begs the spirit to show him no more. And, that's whenever he takes the flame snuff and puts it over the spirit's head. Then you have him waiting for the Ghost of Christmas Present. Now, the Ghost of Christmas Present is different from the Ghost of Christmas Past, where the Ghost of Past came to Scrooge. It flew in through the window to talk to Scrooge. The Ghost of Christmas Present had to be approached. And you're not fucking surprised to find out that the Ghost of Christmas Present was a stand-in for Christ. Yeah, all that happened while Marley was dying, yeah. The Ghost of Christmas Present, which is a stand-in for Christ. And there's multiple lines where he talks about, I'm always here, just because you don't see me doesn't mean I'm here. I have 1,800, or 1,800 brothers and all that. So Christ or Santa. I think it's more like Christ, or like the birth of Christ specifically. Yeah, the Ghost of Christmas Present is supposed to be the birth of Christ that comes around every year. He comes in, he's a big, strong man, but he ages and withers in only a single night. It's like how people go to church and they pray and they have their faith burning strong like a big bonfire for one night on the anniversary of Christ's birth, and then after that, gone. That's what the allegory is for. But he gives me Santa vibes as well. Well, I mean, come on. And he shows him, here's Bob Cratchit's family and how happy they are in their meager dwellings, how they're stuffing their face and they're able to stuff their face and have, these meager presents. And one of the biggest parts is like they're just so excited for the roast goose and the pudding that they're very excited for. And it comes to be the line that really stands out for me is like, the not so subtle hint by the Ghost of Christmas Past saying that Tiny Tim could very well die before he sees his next Christmas. And Scrooge is genuinely disturbed by that. It's easy for him to, and, there's multiple times where the Ghost of Christmas Present will just, throw out, a line that Scrooge has said before. And it's like, well, isn't it a good thing that the little cripple dies? Isn't it a good thing that he dies? Because it will solve the overpopulation. And the line that gets me is like, be careful whenever you pass judgment on who should live and who should die, for maybe heaven will believe that you're the first that needs to go. That's a very good line. 2,025 siblings. Yep. Every Christmas, a new Ghost of Christmas present is born. He lives, he ages, and he dies in a single night. hang on. I lost my train of thought. Give me a sec. I am so smart, dude. I swear to God. So, Bob Cratchit's family, he tells Scrooge, look, they're poor, they're struggling, but they're able to still find joy. Why can't you, with all your riches, find joy? And then he shows, his nephew that his sister that had passed, a sister that had came and got him all those years prior to tell him that he can come home and spend Christmas with his family. His nephew from his sister that had passed. And he loved his sister, but she had died much, much too early. And his nephew's having a grand old time, they're living well, they have plenty of money. And Scrooge wants to say, one thing that I prefer in the book over the many adaptations is whenever they're playing the yes or no game, they end up calling Scrooge things like a bear, an ass, a horrible beast that stalks through London, all these things. And Scrooge, he laughs along with them. He's starting to understand that maybe I have been a real piece of shit. But in every other adaptation, they make it out to where, like, oh, his pride gets hurt, so he immediately sinks back. It's like, to be fair, I can see that also happening. But at the same time, Scrooge is so swept up in the idea of having friends and family, drinking, eating, being warm and happy, singing, making merry. Having that killed by a joke, which he wanted to stay and be part of the game, Scrooge is a bit smarter than to be like, oh, they're making fun of me? How could they make fun of me? Like, come on. The very start of the book also calls him a beast. Yeah. To Bob, and then we see his nephew Fred, yes. The book very subtle yet detailed. Yes, that is one thing that Dickens has, is that Dickens has very blunt and flat language that has a lot of very good prose with it. But whenever he just straight up wants to tell you something, Dickens will tell you. He does not beat around the bush. There's symbolism such as, Ghost of Christmas Present being a stand-in for Christ, him aging in one night and dying by the end of the night, or becoming an old withered man by the end of the night, is symbol of people's faith being very fleeting during the holidays. That's the symbolism. However, whenever he wants to tell you straight up, like, hey, there are people in much, much worse positions that still find faith and comfort in each other. Why do you quarrel? Why do you quarrel? Why do you fight? Why are you so miserable in a time of merriment? It's very fucking just, do you get the message? Just beating that shit into you. Dickens is very good about that in all of his books. There's sometimes, though, in his plays where it is so... Dickens does have a thing where whenever he's being theatrical, he will shove his own nose so far up his ass to smell his own farts. Just my advice... Don't read any theatrical plays that Dickens... Don't read or watch any theatrical plays that Dickens wrote, because you're going to despise the man. You're going to think he's the most stuck-up, pretentious hack ever. I say he earned that right. Okay, you have not read or seen any plays by Dickens then. Because, oh my god, they are so... Some of them are just so insufferable. Like modern Broadway tier, insufferable and preachy. I liked his Great Expectations. Yeah, I do. I like that book too. I never finished it. I'll tell you why I didn't finish it, but yeah, I'll tell you why later. But fuck me. This beer's drying out my mouth. Every time I take a drink, it's supposed to be hydrating my mouth and, loosening my tongue. It's drying it out. I should go get some water and drink some water, but fuck it. Where's that? Yes. So the Ghost of Christmas Present shows him his nephew. Then he shows him a bunch of different places, such as the people that work in the morgue. He goes to a lighthouse and shows how they are, how they celebrate Christmas on a lighthouse. Then he goes to a ship at sea and shows that, everyone on the ship is much more elided. They're kinder. The miners. He shows them the miners, how they, celebrate Christmas. How a ship at sea, even in rough waters, they will still celebrate Christmas and sing and be happier. People in faraway British colonies, implied like they're British colonies or they're Chinese colonies, or in Canada, showing how they celebrate Christmas. Even the foreigners, how they bring in, they have these people coming from India or China, and they're living in Britain at the time, these dignitaries, and how they even get swept up in the Christmas festivities. All these different things. He shows them, all these people, from the poor miners down in the coal mine, to these people on a ship, fighting against the waves, to the people that are thousands of miles away from the home islands, are all celebrating Christmas, making merry and be happy. Why aren't you? Why can't you? And it beats on why can't you be like them? And you say you want these things. You want to be happy. You look upon Bob Cratchit's house and with, pity, sympathy, and envy. You look upon your nephew and you want to be there. You wish you were there celebrating with them. Why can't you be there? Why can't you do that? Question: if they made a modern version of Christmas Carol, would Ali Baba be replaced with a Muslim kid named after their prophet? I don't even want to think about that. I don't even want to think about what a modern Christmas Carol would be like. Oh god, you think a Christmas Carol is already preachy? Oh my god. A modern Christmas Carol would be hell. Anyways. So. Then you have the Ghost of Christmas Present shows that Scrooge notices his movement under his robe. He notices that the ghost is getting older. Right? And there's things under his robe. And in the original one, the children were what were they called? What was it? Inequity and Despair? Was that what they were called? Inequity and Despair? In modern ones, they change it to be Hope and Charity. That the starving children are Hope and Charity. So, they're starving, they're dying. However, I think the much more, real ones is that the green robe of the Christmas present, right? Ignorance and Want. Ignorance and Want. Ignorance and Want. Being hidden by this veil of Christmas where, yes, Scrooge can see all these happy things. However, there's people still starving, right? He didn't show them the kids that are starving and will get nothing for Christmas. They're completely destitute. They're completely downtrodden. It's not supposed to be oh yeah, ignorance and want are fat because they're so prominent in the world. No, they're wretched. They're things you don't want to see, and they're hidden behind the veil of Christmas. Which, yeah, tell me how many times you see that shit nowadays. Right? Then, of course, the almost instantly, instead of having that wait where the ghost of Christmas Past disappeared, and then Scrooge had to wait to find the ghost of Christmas Present. The ghost of Christmas Future, as the ghost of Christmas Present fades away, the ghost of Christmas Future just strides right up to him, black hood and all. And of course, this is where we get the scene where Scrooge follows. Originally, it was the ghost of Christmas Past dragging Scrooge along, flying him through the sky. Then it was the Ghost of Christmas Present using his sconce to teleport around and go through walls and shit somewhat, but the Ghost of Christmas Future merely walks and leads Scrooge. It's almost like he's following. You know what the Ghost of Christmas Future is. In most interpretations, it's seen as death or the angel of death. So Scrooge has to walk and follow this angel of death, or death itself. So he's following death, right? A very morbid sight. And as he's following him to town, he sees all these things. You know, people talking about somebody has died. People are pawning his stuff, you know, divvying it up and pawning it off. There are, you know, some people are like, oh man, I really should go to the funeral, but I kind of don't want to. And, you know, they're like, well, I'll go if they have lunch. And he's like, and another dude's like, I don't eat lunch, but you know what? Fuck it. If you guys go, I'll go just to be there. You know, all that. And Scrooge is like, who the hell are they talking about? And then he sees some old business partners of his, and they're talking about the death. And they're talking about their prospects and, like, how is it going to affect me, right? Recall he mainly points them down the path. He kind of like walks the way down there, and Scrooge is following him. They go into these slums, and in the very dingiest corner of London, in the slums, is Scrooge's grave. And of course you have the scene where Scrooge is begging, asking, you know, spirit, what name is written on that grave. And the spirit of course says nothing, and he begs the spirit to talk to him. And eventually Scrooge falls on his knees, and he finally sees that it's his name and that he dies on Christmas Day. You know, it's a very brutal scene. It's something that, again, Dickens would have made a hell of a horror author. I say brutal not as like, oh, it's so gory and shit, but it's something that you're like, if you have a moment where you can see to the future and you see your own gravestone, that would be world-shattering. That would just entirely fuck up everything that you could think about for the rest, however many days you have left. Even if it's one day, you will not stop thinking about what's about to happen. Never. Right? It's soul-crushing, yes. And it's something that, you say that, but most of his main characters are born into the greatest horror story, being poor. Yeah, true. But, The cries, especially the audiobook that I listened to re-listen to it again, very good voice actor. I don't remember who it was, but very good. His cries saying, "Spirit, show me what name is it. Tell me what name is on that grave." You know, him just saying that over and over again until he falls to his knees and he starts weeping at the grave. And then he wakes up. And he's confused. He has no idea. He thinks that Christmas Day has already passed, that he's too late, that he will die and he will be damned to walk the earth as a suffering spirit as his friend Marley. Fuck. And then, of course, you have the scene where he looks out the window and he sees a kid, you know, pulling a sleigh with a goose on it, and he tells the kid, you know what day it is, or no, the kid was just walking. He was just pulling a sleigh, wasn't he? I was at work whenever I listened to this, so it's all a blur because I'm pretty sure my manager was bitching at me at the time. But he was just pulling a sleigh. And he asked the kid what day it was, and of course he had the famous line, "Why, it's Christmas Day, sir." "Hey kid, what day is it?" It's July." What? Yeah, that also be something that actually give him a heart attack. Is like, it's July, and it's like snowing. It's like almost a half foot of snow, and he's like, huh. Yeah, just walking down the road. But he, it's like, "Why, it's Christmas Day, sir." And of course you have him saying, go to the store and buy the fattest goose that you can. you know, and he shows up to Cratchit's house, and there's multiple times where he pretends to be the old, you know, selfish, angry, bitter Scrooge, but then he breaks into it and he starts laughing. Of course, pretty much everyone that sees him are terrified and pissed off that he's like, why the fuck is this dipshit ruining our festivities? And then they're just relieved that it's like, finally he's come around. Finally he can see, you know, the merriment and the happiness. And that's how A Christmas Carol ends. And you have the typical, you know, he plans on helping pay to keep Tiny Tim alive. He'll give Bob Cratchit a raise. He's no longer the miser that he was. Once he had that vision of not only he is going to die, not only is he's going to die, but once he dies, he knows what's going to happen. He saw what's going to happen. So what does Tiny Tim have? Polio? It could be assumed it could be polio. He could just been born with a lame, like he's born and he has that disease where his body's not developing the hormones properly. It could have been like he was just born with a lame foot, or his back was fucked up, something like that. But that is A Christmas Carol. It is a very, very, very simple story, one of the simplest that you can get. However, its simplicity and the layers that it has to it, where the more you look into all these different things in the story, very, 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 very good. Right? What did you all think? Whenever it comes to stories like this, I've heard some people say that Christmas movies and Christmas stories are bad because you can only watch them once. There's only one period of the year where they fit, where they're good, right? You're not going to watch a Polar Express in fucking June, right? I mean, you could, but then you're like, I just wish it was Christmas then, right? So you're not going to watch, you know. I say that Christmas stories and Christmas music and Christmas movies and all that shit are good because they only come around for a limited time in the year. I think every year I have a tradition where I watch a Polar Express. It is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. I love the a Polar Express, right? If I watch that at any point other than December, I think I would start to hate it. You know, the Polar Express is it's a movie that requires you to be in a Christmas atmosphere, right? The John Lennon Christmas song, it's the only good thing he did outside of helping popularize rock. Popularized rock is sort of like yeah, he kinda did that. But I never heard the John Lennon Christmas song. Maybe I did, I just don't know. I'm just not thinking of it. But I like, I think I might do a thing where I'll torrent A Christmas Carol, the 2009 movie, and the Polar Express, and we'll probably watch that in the server. Probably tomorrow, maybe, if I have time. Since I did basically go back to it, going back to certain moments legit made me feel like that scene with Fezziwig. Yeah. Just like a blur of, you know, happiness, party, and everything. I think that's a good place to cut off the book club. Very simple, very short book club. Not a lot of discussion because it's a story that we all know. However, I hope you all are happier having read that story or listened to an audiobook or, you know, an audio drama play of it, or hell, even tomorrow whenever we watch the movie, either tomorrow or the night after, whenever we get to watching, you know, the 2009 movie, I hope you all are going to just enjoy that and really get into the Christmas spirit. Really get to the idea of saying, you know, maybe this Christmas I'll try and do a bit more. I'll try and be a bit more helpful, be a bit more kinder, merry. I'll say with full honesty, God bless you and Merry Christmas. right? I am happy after reading it full. Yeah. Good night, Lawrence. Have a happy December and a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Which cruise is better, Muppet, Disney, or Flintstone, or Jim Carrey, 2009? Is that Jim Carrey? Who played Scrooge in the 2009 movie? Well, I'm not ending stream. I'm going to play some Deadlock. You know, maybe I might just end stream, actually. I played Deadlock by myself. Let's see, who played... Oh, it was Jim Carrey. I never knew that. I never knew it was fucking Jim Carrey. Have a good night, Shy. Alright, you know what? We'll end our book club here. I'll play Deadlock by myself, I guess. And we'll watch, tomorrow, we'll watch a 2009 Christmas Carol movie around the same time, around 8. So I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all have a good night, and Merry Christmas.